Folks, hello, and welcome to Tavern Chat. Today I am taking a look at the sales figures for RPGs, and I'm going to look at a few stats from this year and last year. And I'm going to come out with my argument as to whether or not there's going to be, any time in our near future, an actual 6th edition of D&D. And I'll, like usual, I'm going to back this up with statistics. Because numbers don't lie, but they can certainly be interpreted different ways. So I'm going to look at this and looking at the sales figures here. Let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Maybe I can't. It doesn't want to. All right. In any case, you can see that the hobby, and when I say the hobby sales, these are hobby games according to ICv2, are games produced for a gamer market. So that share of that amount of sales went from 2019's number of 1.68 billion to 2.03 billion. It eclipsed 2 billion in sales. It's a huge market. Now, of that market, RPGs are really just a small slice. So when I talk about the OSR, it's a niche within a niche. Or a niche within a niche, depending on how you pronounce the word. But the RPG sales grew rapidly in 2019, and they were up 2013 on the year prior. But it were even faster in 2020. 2020 is affectionately known as what? The year of the evil word, the pandemic. They were up 31% and broke 100 million for the first time. It's hit an estimated $105 million. All right. Now, think about that. All right. It's a $105 million industry. It's not nothing, but it's nothing compared to other parts of the hobby market, right? It's coming in at roughly 5% of the hobby market. Of that, Wizards of the Coast is doing the bulk of the monies. And that's with just having one title, Dungeons and Dragons. They no longer haven't had for years. They haven't had Star Wars as a licensee, right? They're not trying to pump out another game. It's D&D. Now, we can look at that number. This article came out just a couple of days ago on ICv2. I'm tempted to become a pro subscriber at roughly $10 a month. Maybe I'll dabble in it for the free 2 weeks and see what kind of articles we can get. But I'll come back to that. That's interesting. There are the top 5 role-playing games for the fall of 2020. And these top 5, now they rank them in order, but they don't tell you the share. Okay? Dungeons and Dragons, no surprise, right? Pathfinder. Now we don't know if it's number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, or it's number 1, number 2, 3, 4, 5. We don't know the gap. But we can make assumptions for that gap when we look at play numbers that we've discussed in the past. I'm not going to bring them up on Roll20, especially in Fantasy Grounds. So the top 5 are Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, Cyberpunk, Alien, and Fate. Okay. Now, what's missing from there? Call of Cthulhu. Now, that's surprising because Call of Cthulhu is one of the top played games on Roll20. So, is it people are playing it but they're not buying it? Could be. Call of Cthulhu, though, is one of those games that you may find at a mass market bookstore, along with Pathfinder and D&D, and Fate. Alien might even be making it into those places. Cyberpunk, thanks to Cyberpunk Red, the video game, it's gotten certainly a bit more play or a bit more notice. So, we're going to move on from there. There's an article of, in all places, MSNBC from earlier this year in March. Dungeons and Dragons had its biggest year ever as COVID forced the game off tables and onto the web. Okay. So we're getting things like MSNBC or CNBC writing about D&D. So now and sales of D&D, which makes it certainly interesting. Move on from there. We have an article. Now this is going back to 2019. And the reason why I bring this up is starter set sales quadrupled from 2018 to 2019. Okay. 2019, Wizards of the Coast does not tell you what their actual sales figures are. But they were talking about the percentages. And the percentages are, it's a percentage increase. And they were talking about this is likely because things like YouTube viewership of D&D videos increased 59% from 2018 to 2019. I can only imagine the numbers we're going to look at when it goes from 2019 to 2020 because of COVID, and further on from 2020 to 2021. So if you are selling your core material, your starter sets, all right, that quadrupled as recently as 2019, and your sales are up, according to ICv2, year after year, 2019 to 2020, we're looking at an increase in RPG sales up 23%. That's pretty huge. And from 2019 to 2018, 31% from 2019 to 2020. I know some of you going, these numbers don't mean anything. Well, they mean a lot. These numbers are huge increases in sales for the hobby. And what drives the hobby? D&D. So you don't have to see the numbers to know that right behind this is Dungeons and Dragons. Now, you have a successful RPG that is generating you millions of dollars. Are you going to reboot it for, I don't know, 6th edition? I don't see that. I know that people are saying, oh, we're going to see 6th edition within 2 years. I don't believe it. I believe we're going to see a soft relaunch when the movie comes. The game itself, the engine's not going to change. We might see a simplifying of the basic rules. I like having that cough button. But I don't see us changing the rules. I don't see us saying, hey, we're relaunching. They don't need to. If they're selling their core books, their core box sets, we're not seeing a new edition. This isn't a desperation that Paizo had. Why did Paizo have to come out with a 2nd edition of Pathfinder? He had to generate monies. All right? And if we hadn't seen it a couple of years ago, you would have seen it because of COVID. I truly believe that. But the numbers are up, right? The sales numbers are up because of COVID. So people being forced to stay at home and not physically socialize have kicked the RPG hobby up about almost a third greater in sales. Amazing. Simply amazing. So when people say gamers are cheap, not so much. Now, what's happening? Are the same gamers buying more product? Possibly. When you're stuck home and you got all this free time, you could be stuck home doing more reading, right? But if you're stuck home and you're looking to occupy free time and you weren't a gamer before, and your gamer friend or your gamer relative says, hey, Dungeons and Dragons is pretty cool, why don't you try it? Here's a free tool, Roll20, that will allow you to do so. Play with us. I mean, think about it. This increase is happening when people are not moving on to physical game stores. This is 2020. This increase happened, nearly a third jump in the market when people were stuck at home And if they were gaming on VTTs. That is amazing. And that is part of the market that's got to be more properly tapped. If you are a third-party publisher, you got to think about how to get yourself highlighted on a VTT. Honestly, that's where a lot of this marketing, I think, is going to happen. A lot of this marketing is going to start happening on VTTs. Advertising on VTTs is going to be huge. That's my guess. So, again, I don't see a 6th edition happening. I see, and I've had said the statement before, I see more of a soft reboot of what we already have. 5th edition is not going to go away. Why? Why kill the golden goose when it is still generating money? Every other edition we've seen, and all the excuse has always been, oh, the rules got unwieldy. Yeah, but Wizards of the Coast hasn't really done much of that, right? The changes have been small. They've been gradual. They've changed the way they've produced books. Their core is still selling. If they're still making money, increasing their market money every year, they're not changing. We're not seeing a new edition. Again, if you do see something, you could see a proper quote basic D&D coming out. And even that, I don't see them trying to fraction their audience. Trying to split some part of it away. So now, I gave a hint of this because it was out of order, but hey. Look at this. Look at what is coming. This is a full-size Wand of Orcus. It weighs 5 pounds, and it's waiting to be displayed in your game room. And I think that it's huge. I don't know of many people that are going to buy it, but it's $150. It is 2.5 feet in overall length, weighs a gross weight of 5 pounds. It's a great combination to go with the Hand and Eye of Vecna, right? I wonder what other classic artifacts they're going to decide to release. I mean, these are iconic so far, but going to be interesting, right? Going to be interesting. Folks, please, as always, there's a voicemail on screen. It's 347-509-5168. Please, if you have comments, questions, requests, leave a voicemail. I listen to them all. Not everyone is put up on the air. Someone just more give me information, things I should look into. Some just don't really work to be on the air, but if we can put it on the air, we will, unless you request we don't. And again, we myself, my co-hosts, we do live streams Wednesday, Friday, Saturday night. We do this because of you, the audience, the community. So thank you. Thank you for being there, listening, watching, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on the podcast side. Thank you. All right, folks. On that note, we are still in the midst of the world of COVID. And I am not saying what you should do aside from using your common sense. Okay? Ignore the talking heads on TV, on the internet, wherever you may see them. Seek a medical professional with advice that you trust and get their advice. Best thing I can tell you. You know your situation better than anybody else. Be safe, be well, God bless. Roll those dice. Roll them well. And God willing, I'll be back again tomorrow. All right, folks. Laters.